kind of the two favorite things that I love to do in life: code and talk. So that's kind of the ideal thing. I'm a developer advocate, a Spring developer advocate with Pivotal, and I like to refer to myself as a professional problem solver because I like to write code to solve real world problems as well as talk to folks to find out more real world problems and how best to solve them. And a lot of times that happens to involve using Spring technologies in one form or another, but certainly any proper solution is fair game. It's just that we cover so much ground within the Spring portfolio. So
That's great. So you are you have a session about reactive in Java?
yeah, I actually have a couple sessions I'm doing here. The afternoon session tomorrow is on full stack reactive Java. Actually, I've got a couple surprises in there because I'm doing part of the talk in Kotlin as well, and I've kind of taken the temperature of audiences, and there's a big demand and interest in learning a bit of Kotlin, and it's actually such a gentle path from Java to Kotlin, so I'm covering both. Extra value, no extra charge. But of course the focus is on the reactive part of that because folks are always looking to do more with less. It's becoming more and more important every day to do more with less. No time have I ever heard anyone say that we need to actually do less and commit more resources to do it. It's always the other way around, coincidentally. But reactive streams are the mechanism that allows us to do more with less, to actually serve more, to be more scalable. It doesn't necessarily change the performance curve as much as it changes the ability to scale, wickedly scalable. So scale out, scale in, and to service more requests than the typical traditional method of scaling that Java has traditionally employed, which is with each additional connection, you have an additional thread, which is it's very easy to reason about, but not terribly efficient when most of your threads happen to be blocking. So what reactive streams gives you the ability to do is to have an event loop in there, and which gives you a teensy bit of overhead. Obviously, if you have a single connection, then it's hard to get more efficient than a blocking request because you just, hey, service my request, and when you're done, I get it back. That's hard to beat that. But when you go out scaling to hundreds or thousands of connections, hundreds of thousands of requests, then that event loop allows you to do a lot more with a very small number of threads. So it's crazy efficient.
Cool. So so which technology? I mean, do you have a demo?
What's the... Yes, actually, I live code it all because I think it makes a lot of sense to see it in action. That's how I mean, it's great to read about things. It's great to watch videos. But where you really learn is when you see it working, when you see it in action, when you see how easy it is to leverage the full power of it, just starting from zero, ground up building it. And what I focus on, of course, is the reactive streams, or Project Reactor project within Pivotal shepherds it and leads it, but it's a reactive streams implementation. And of course, there are numerous adherents to and signees to, if you will, the Reactive Streams Initiative, Twitter, Xing, Pivotal, Red Hat, Lightbend, Oracle, of course, with Java 9 incorporated Java Unified Flow. So you have publishers, you have subscribers, and subscriptions as well as processors, which incorporate the publisher and subscriber interface. But the idea is to take those interactions and to more efficiently work with interactions so that you're not, again, creating a whole bunch of connections and then blocking on all of them. So it's more productive. Project Reactor is the effort we lead, but there's a lot of cross-pollination against the various different libraries like RxJava and Akka Streams and what have you. And based on the Reactive Streams TCK, you can validate and verify your level of compliance. And starting off with a well-tested and proven library allows you to focus, again, on the business domain, the problem that you're trying to solve versus building out a set of mechanics and pieces and parts to solve that problem. So yeah, sorry, I kind of went long on that, but it's Project Reactor is built in as the reactive underpinnings for Spring Framework 5, Spring Boot 2, which still has all of the imperative bits. It still has your Spring MVC type of capabilities, but it also in parallel has web flux, as we call it, Project Reactor bits within.
So you said you're doing a live coding
Yes.
session from start to end, right?
Yes.
So how long does it take?
It takes, in a 50-minute session, I like to try to dispense with the introductions and formalities and get right into it to max. I think it's important to have a bit of context so you understand. You're not just assuming that somebody comes in already an expert. Obviously, if they were, what's the value? But I think it's important to, once you establish that context and bring everybody to the point that they're ready to dive off, then you start encoding and show them and build up from, again, an empty project. You just have an initial project. We start off with zero code, and we build out from there. So what I typically do is build out a service, build out a client, do some tests, so you can kind of see how all of that interacts. And I can do it in 50 minutes. It's kind of aggressive, but I tend to talk and narrate a lot as I code. So I've had people tell me, even if they're not necessarily versed at all in the concept, that I mean, my goal is not to leave anyone behind, and I've had people tell me that I do a fairly good job with that. Hopefully that will continue. But I think it's important people walk out at the end of the session with, I mean, in 50 minutes you can't hope to answer every question, but you can hope to establish a good baseline and start the dialogue. So if they have questions afterward, I'm always available. I mean, I live on Twitter. I do have a couple email addresses I check periodically, but Twitter, I'm always there pretty much, and happy to carry on conversations after and make sure that full understanding is there. So. And so
you talk also about the Spring Boot in the
yes.
So
yeah.
It's so popular that so how do you use Spring Boot in this context?
Well, Spring Boot gives you, I like to kind of focus on the three big things that Spring Boot provides, which is simplified dependency management. And again, nobody ever asked for more complex dependencies, but it allows you to get very efficient in terms of your management of capabilities, functionality, because it has BOMs, bills of material, that bring in, when you want to do one thing, typically you have to have 3 or 4 dependencies to accomplish that set of functionality that 99% of the time you need. You need all of them. So rather than add a whole bunch of dependencies to your POM or your Gradle build file, build.gradle file, excuse me, you have a starter, a Spring Boot starter. So that simplifies that. It also has auto configuration, which a lot of folks outside of the Spring world initially look at it and say, well, it's like magic. I don't understand how it's doing so much, and I don't see where it's coming in. But it's very simple. I like to jokingly say it's not magic. It's actually science and technology at play here. But the idea is that at startup, what it does is evaluates your code, your annotations, any properties that you have set, and what's in your dependencies. So that if you have a database access library in your dependencies, and you have extended an interface defined in Spring Data, then Spring Boot says, well, you must want to talk to a database. It's a pretty simple and very logical assumption that means that it provides the beans that you need to interact with the data store without any additional effort on your part. If you want to change it, if you want to tweak it, certainly you can, but you don't have to. You can focus on the business problem. And of course, the other thing with Spring Boot is the deployment. You've got an Uber jar, a fat jar, and it's not a shaded jar. You've got fully nested jars, which gives you a lot of extra stuff that I could talk about, but I won't. I won't digress. But the idea is, of course, you can deploy anywhere there's a JVM, in any container, in any cloud platform, in any laptop or a server if you still have one. But you can deploy anywhere there's a JVM. So it simplifies your life in so many ways as a developer. And again, going back to the starters, if I want to bring in reactive web, it's simply selecting a single dependency and you're off and running with your project. So it sets that in your build file, and you can start immediately coding and being productive without a lot of structural framework that you have to type in before you can do your first thing. Streamlines quite nicely.
So I know you said you're online a lot, so on Twitter for sure.
Yes, I have a problem, and I'll admit it.
Okay.
No,
it's not a problem. For me, it's not a problem. It's it's wonderful having you on Twitter all the time.
Well, I enjoy it. I guess that's my outlet. It's my oxygen.
Yes.
But I do think as with all things technology, they give to you with one hand, they take away with the other. But I do think that Twitter, as the social network with the highest signal to noise ratio, gives you a lot of bang for your buck. And I love the connections we've formed on Twitter and will form over Twitter. So, whether it's old friends or new old friends that you meet and you become fast friends because you share a love of what you're doing and the technology stack you're working with, I think it's a great place to meet up. Yeah. So, yes, I do all times, day or night, time zones, irrelevant. I'm pretty much on Twitch.
So if people have questions about Spring, I mean,
and DMs are open. If you want to be quiet about it and ask me a kind of a behind the scenes, hey, I'm just curious about this, DM me, that's fine. If you want to ping me in the open, that's fine too. It's just MKHECK, MKHECK, and I'm there. So if I don't respond right away, it's because I'm like sleeping for a couple hours or something. But otherwise, I'll be back.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you. Always a pleasure.
Yeah, and don't miss his. You have plenty of presentations also on YouTube.
Yes,
I should say that because it's
yeah.
Because you're traveling all the time to tons of conferences. So yeah.
Anyway, they'll let me come. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you very much.